Creativeworks London is a knowledge exchange hub for the creative economy. It exists in order to bring people together with different kinds of expertise by enabling people to find partners who can undertake research into key questions. The Boost scheme is a kind of development of our Creative Voucher programme, and we decided that we would use some of the most successful projects that we'd already funded and gave people the resource and the opportunity to collaborate on a more ambitious scale. The evidence we have is that the majority of our projects did not have any previous history of collaboration, and that actually people were brought together through our ideas pools, workshops and so on. And particularly looking at the Boost scheme, 4 out of 5 of those projects were new collaborations that were enabled by our activities and curation. So I think that's a very significant bit of evidence that the work of curating the partnerships was key to producing very successful kinds of work.
We often sort of talk about creatives and academics, but over the last 4 years I've worked with so many knowledgeable, enthusiastic, creative and entrepreneurial people, and you really can't distinguish whether they're an academic or a creative in that way. They're shared skills. One of the things that we did do through Boost was help to equip small SMEs to think about their project or their business in slightly more entrepreneurial terms, and to help them become more resilient and think about different ways of accessing funding in the future and presenting their business case to a different range of funders. One of the greatest successes of Creativeworks London has been the creation of a fascinating, stimulating, eclectic and energetic network, and that will continue to inform all of our work into the future, I think way beyond the end of the project, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with the network that we've created.
The impact in terms of the number of researchers who now have experience of working in collaboration with the creative industries and who have expressed a desire to carry on doing that kind of work is really impressive. And if you invest in the right sorts of frameworks to enable and inform and support people, we will find that research in the arts and humanities is much more regularly undertaken in partnership and in an outward focused way, which I think will be really beneficial for our research.
Arts companies now, performing companies, are increasingly creating digital content for their websites. And like many other companies, ETO has produced a lot of this material, but it's difficult to get feedback on it other than how many people have watched it. So the project was conceived by ETO as a way of getting more nuanced feedback on the material.
Many arts organisations, particularly subsidised arts organisations, are, I would say, under pressure to answer questions about the digital content that accompanies their live performance. We never would have had the scope to actually question the digital work that our marketing department was doing and to assess its impacts without this partnership. You know, we have a small staff. We produce a lot more opera regionally than anybody else. We just don't have the opportunity to conduct significant research, even though we have access to a very big field. So this opportunity to do some qualitative research was really very timely.
The most surprising finding of our research was the reaction the younger opera goers had, not in terms of their opinions about the content, but in terms of how they critiqued it. So we found that the younger opera goers were extremely sophisticated in their way of reacting to digital content.
The research has influenced the kind of digital content that we are creating immediately. I became aware that it's not all sales-oriented, that in fact, an entirely different stream of digital content should be directed towards enhancing the experience of people who plan to attend. You have a chance to shape people's expectations and people's experience of the work, and to really radically deepen their appreciation of the work that you're trying to do. Because of the information that we got from the research, whereas last season we had 10,000 hits, at the same point in the campaign this year for our film for Don Giovanni, we got 50,000 hits. So obviously we're producing more of what people want to see. And that's, that can be nothing but positive. I wish we could do a research project like this, every other year.
From an academic point of view, and indeed I think from a business point of view, for me it's about a culture of thought, and people have a tendency in all walks of life to gather with similar people and develop a sort of culture of thinking together. And it's always useful to get some new life into your thought process and into your intellectual habits. And I think that has been the most useful intellectual aspect of collaborating with a business, that you have that opportunity to think in a new way. And that's what it's all about.
Boost gave us the opportunity to actually develop a model for taking the archive and taking my vision and my ambitions for it to the next stage.
One of the main things that the Boost project allowed us to do with developing and researching and developing the idea of the model is to understand how much the funding structure for something like June's archive has changed. So we were interviewing various different archives and museums and collections to see how they got funded, how they got established, and how they were sustaining themselves. So we've come up with a new model which is around partnerships and more transitional funding processes than we might have done if it had been 5 years ago, and that's been really important.
I really felt it was important to look for a new model, and a model that would deliver the sort of priorities that I was looking for, to do with wider access, to do with some flexibility, and to do with some mobility. And developing an archive model that would do all of those things meant that you couldn't just use an existing model. And so something that allowed us to have the time and a range of people with skills that would understand that is what this permitted. It would have taken a lot longer had I tried to be putting this together, maybe a couple of years.
Then when we partnered in with the University of Arts with Sonia Boyce and Paul Goodwin, the chair of Black Arts, they put on an exhibition called Movements, which really did give a high profile to the Pan-African Archive and show its worth.
The archive has really come out of my collections as a curator, not as a business person as such, which I am, but I hadn't really formulated that side of things. But obviously to develop the archive, it was necessary. Being put in that position, but not just left to flounder, and to have the opportunity to be alongside other projects that were a lot more developed as businesses, and to be in the workshop situations actually was very helpful, allowing me to envisage how that might work or what might be needed in my side.
The Boost funding gave us a really creative, it sounds a bit of a cliche, a real creative boost. And it gave us a lot of optimism as well. We were very excited. We are very excited what's happened. Judy and Steve came into the project basically because Boost gave them a framework to do that. They would have given us advice over coffee and tea, but never, the creative teams meetings we had were just so productive.
Yeah.
And that's what Boost gave us, that creative boost, yeah.
Crows is a brand new project that we've come up with as part of our funding from Creativeworks London through the Boost Award, to see if there's something that we can do using RFID technology. So as you can see, I'm wearing this RFID wristband. So we are offering them out for free to people coming to the Crystal Palace Overground Festival, to encourage them to tap in at different points of the festival and also at different points in the high street. So we are looking at how we can gather some information about how people move around a free festival and provide evidence to local shop owners, to local funders, to local authorities about the economic impact and the cultural and social impact that free arts activities like this have on communities. Everyone hates filling out surveys, and everyone hates making people fill out surveys. And this is trying to find an alternative solution to that, to encourage people to share information that's useful but that doesn't intrude on their privacy, and also that can be a way of enhancing their experience at the activity as well. So actually we incentivise them to want to go and touch in different places because it unlocks additional activities or discounts with local shops.
The outcome of our first collaboration was that we came out with even more questions than we started with. But we actually realized that one of the difficulties in evaluating festivals is that it's really hard to capture the feeling of people, the movement of people, the way people behave into the festival. If you want to capture data, you tend to stop them and ask them to fill in a survey, which kind of kills the mood of whatever they were gonna do in that festival, and really just capture an afterthought about what they did, what they remember, the kind of things that stuck with them.
I mean, our mission is to explore what the future of the high street is. That's our core mission, and how arts and culture can be used to engage people in a debate and discussion about the purpose and future of the high street in Britain. So in terms of meeting that mission, this has been fantastic because it's identifying and starting to provide evidence for how people move around different locations as part of a broader arts festival offer.
And I think the focus of Lydia on the high street obviously is very interesting and is very timely, because the UK high street is always in the news for the continuous decline, for the sort of decline of community and engagement and just economic activities on the high street, with so many shops closing. So for me, it was actually an interesting research agenda to try and push forward as well in thinking how places change and how high street sort of take forward new roles in the social and cultural economy rather than the simply economic economy.
My personal experience having Creativeworks London and like these programs is crucial. I think if people hope that sort of academic partners and business partners will just magically come together and be able to find the time out of their normal daily routine of trying to get work done, trying to get papers published, trying to get students taught to just do these things, it's going to be very difficult, because it's evident that resource is needed in order to make these partnerships possible. Once they're started, then there's future development for them, and maybe, I hope that beyond the Boost Award, Roberta and I can still find some way to work together and maybe find alternative sources of funding to continue. But that resource is needed in order to happen in the first place.
This is Tchaikovsky. That's the oboe section, and this is where, what do they call it, a crescendo, when it all builds up. This is where it stops, and then cymbals, when they stop it, and then it goes, and then it hits again. Beat Woven is a art-led woven textiles label. We are developing technologies in ways of visualising those invisible patterns that are created behind music that people don't see, and translating them into woven textiles. But the main goal, I think, is to be able to create these fabrics and these patterns in a beautiful way, so that music can then become part of your living spaces and your lifestyles. The impact that the Boost Fund has had with Beat Woven, it's allowed me to be able to talk about the legal implications of what I'm doing in a confident manner and to a professional standard, and we have a real deep understanding of behind the scenes of the legalities, and I realise actually now that I know a lot more than most people in that area, so it's sort of helped me lead confidently in that area and be able to communicate that with people.
As a lawyer, I immediately recognized that it involves some fascinating questions that have never been tested before a court of law. It's one thing to have a product which in itself may not involve the infringement of intellectual property right, but actually marketing this product, and by that using certain terminology and names, you may be then triggering a plethora of other intellectual property rights. I had no doubt whatsoever that the business of the type, business model and a product of the type that Nadia has was never in contemplation of the people that were behind the legislative framework of our copyright law. So that's what made it really fascinating for me.
What I've learnt with knowledge exchange actually being the most fundamental part of me growing as a business, because without it I probably would have been fumbling around for at least a year or another 2 years talking to different legal experts, not getting a direct answer, and that actually you can answer legal questions in a research way rather than having to go to lawyers and pay lots of money. The researcher gave me time to really be able to sit down and think about what it is exactly I'm doing and that I need help with. And it wasn't just about the clock ticking and you have to pay this amount of money and you might not even get the answers that you need. That was a really key part for me.
The opportunity to work together with a creator, and I think that informed me on levels or on spheres that go way outside this actual project or anything that is directly connected to this project. So when I teach today, and I said I teach intellectual property in the creative industries, after having this experience, I can not only speak more confidently about it, I know much more what it is about. So the outputs, they're, if you would like, all over the place in the most positive sense.
Attention, this is an announcement. The fish police are in the area. Please make your way to the dance floor in this orderly fashion.
So Heart and Soul believes in the power and talents of people with learning disabilities. We're an arts organisation, and our thing has always been that if you can get access right for people with learning disabilities, everyone's going to benefit, because everything is going to be clearer, everything is going to be less jargony, less confusing.
We completely agree with that. I mean, that's completely our perspective at Goldsmiths in our research group. It's that focus it's I think quite rare to find collaborators who really understand that focus, and that's why it's really good fun.
And I mean, you know, people always talk about relationships as being essential. And again, with Creativeworks, we were given a second opportunity with the Boost programme to further enhance the relationship that we have. And, you know, and it's all about respect and trust for us. And it's about doing things that haven't been done before. And in terms of particularly looking at this kind of fundraising platform that we've done with Creativeworks Boost, where there was a different kind of engagement with the audience. So as well as giving, they were actually going to be receiving a digital gift. And we basically realised that this kind of platform didn't exist currently. So we were breaking a lot of rules. We were doing a lot of things that you're not supposed to do. But it was with a real spirit of inquiry and experimentation, and it's about innovation. And I guess one of the things that was fantastic in terms of working with Goldsmiths was actually real people interacting together. So the user testing around how we evolved that Fish Police app was absolutely essential, because obviously we work with people with a whole range of different impairments and access needs. So just looking at things from a different filter and seeing how different people could really engage in access with making sound was really helpful.
And that really changed the way that we develop the tools, because we're having to be responsive to do something quite hard, which is make a really good interactive music app. And we want to learn from that to figure out how we make even better interactive music apps for everyone. And we were able to do that because we got such great feedback about how the tools are working and how the ideas, how the whole thing fits together technologically. Actually, I'd say that the work with Heart and Soul has given us the best quality feedback in terms of research. And we've been able to publish very highly in the best venues in the world based on the research we've done with Heart and Soul. These projects gel together are larger projects. They help us to iteratively generate new ideas. And then we can take those ideas and explore them in much larger scale projects. So I think that it's really important to fund these kinds of schemes. Small amounts of money make a big difference. If there is an organisation that can provide that level of support, I think it's really worthwhile continuing funding.
I think one of the key lessons is that it is important not to underestimate the work involved in bringing people from different backgrounds, different ways of working, different kind of cultures, and creating a space in which a shared language is developed and projects can be jointly developed and therefore managed and supported in a very kind of collaborative way. Being in London was a really important factor in terms of the way the project was designed and also in terms of some of what we've learned. And I think that was a response to the scale of the creative economy in London. The scale has been a real positive opportunity for Creativeworks London. It's meant we could find people doing really interesting work across a whole range of areas, but it has also been part of our challenge because we wanted to reach out to the whole city, all of our partners, all of the creative industries, all SMEs, and of course the scale of that in the end, even in a 4-year project, is never really going to be achievable. So I think it's that is the kind of distinctive element of being in London. Very positive opportunities, quite challenging scale.
Thinking back over the 4 years of Creativeworks London, particularly from the point of view of the knowledge exchange programme, I think what has been really successful is the brokerage that we designed into the process. And I think that really has helped us develop a fantastic network and some great and really sort of unexpected partnerships.
I think there are a number of legacies. I would certainly wish to see the many researchers that we have worked with continuing to benefit from opportunities to undertake collaborative research with SMEs in the creative economy, projects that can only be imagined because of the work of Creativeworks London. And I see that very much as an international set of opportunities as well as a national. So, we are looking at European Union funding from other national research organisations, because I think what we've learned is of real interest to people who are thinking about their creative and cultural strategies in international contexts.